165 other young rebels staged an armed attack on Batista's Moncada military barracks. Castro was one of few who escaped a near massacre.
His first act of treachery to Cuba's freedom fighters.
He was put on trial and put in prison for 19 months. He continued his fight, and slowly his ideals spread. The United States gave Castro its support. And on January 1st, 1959, Batista and his family boarded a plane and left Cuba. Castro's victory ride to Havana drew cheering crowds. Public trials for Batista supporters were the first signs of Castro-style justice. Hundreds were executed by firing squads. And as relations with the U.S. fizzled, Castro found support in the Soviet Union. The Eisenhower administration officially broke diplomatic relations with Cuba.
Our sympathy goes out to the people of Cuba, now suffering under the yoke of a dictator.
In 1961, some 1,500 Cuban exiles trained, armed, and funded by the CIA invaded Cuba at the Bay of Pigs at President Kennedy's go-ahead. The attempt only succeeded in giving Castro a way to show the world his claims the U.S. was out to get him were right. Through the next decades, Castro and his close circle put tight controls on every aspect of Cuban life. Cubans struggled under financial and material hardship and rationing. With Soviet support in place, Castro made Cuba a Communist Party state in 1975. In the spring of 1980, a crowd stormed the Peruvian embassy in Havana begging to leave. Castro opened the port of Mariel and opened his prisons to send criminals with those leaving. The start of the exodus, now known as the Mariel boat lift, became a tenth of Cuba's population getting on boats bound for South Florida, most looking for lives better than Castro offered them. Cuba's communist economy struggled, more so than with the demise of the Soviet Union, its benefactor. He told his people they were short on food and resources because of the U.S. embargo. In 1996, Castro ordered the shootdown of 2 Brothers to the Rescue planes on a humanitarian mission, claiming they were U.S. aggressors. 4 men were killed. Castro orchestrated a public relations coup over the wranglings of a 6-year-old refugee named Elian Gonzalez, and he won when Elian was brought back to Cuba to be with his father. In 2006, Castro underwent emergency surgery after suffering gastrointestinal bleeding, and temporarily he relinquished control to his younger brother, Raul. On the streets of South Florida, then, Miami's exile community celebrated what many said signaled the beginning of the end for Castro.